Hey everybody, Nick here with Acres of Grace Farms, and it is Tennessee Beef Month. And lo and behold, we just got a quarter of a beef in from one of our local processors here. And so a lot of people ask, like how much do you get? And while that ranges depending on animal weights and such, this particular quarter yielded right at 120 pounds worth of total meat. Now, of that 120, we've got nice little tags from the processor here that tells us exactly what all are in these boxes. But of that 120, around 40. Yeah, so around a third of it is going to be ground, and that's about what we see. Between 30 to 40% of the animal will be ground, depending on how you want to do some specific cuts, how many roasts and such that you want. But just for free, these are like little, these are kind of small boxes here. You can see it's around 120 pounds. That would just about fit in a freezer on a regular refrigerator. And we typically have a lot of it is also how you have you packaged. Now we typically have our steaks done 2 to a pack. That kind of is a nice, if you do want singles, you can go get singles. That will sometimes increase your cost per pound because there's more packaging related to that. But we get asked a lot, like, hey, what does a quarter beef look like? What does a half beef look like? What does a whole look like? So this would be a good representation of a quarter. The half would of course be double this amount of meat, and then of course the full would be closer to well over 400 pounds of total meat. Okay. All right, so we're gonna do a little bit of unboxing. This entire box is 33.45 pounds of ground beef. So we're just gonna set it aside. We typically, there are options. This is what a pound of ground beef looks like. This is vacuum sealed in the vacuum sealed packs. Sometimes you can get them in what they call the chub that looks like a little roll, and those are still typically pounds. You can also, from a lot of processors, get these in 2 pound increments. So if you've got a larger family, doing a lot more ground beef type meals, they're basically they're just double in size, and they're 2 pounds on there. It will always say on your label exactly what it is. So see, like right here, you see it's labeled ground beef, and the net weight on this particular package is 1.17 pounds. So it will always say that. This box has more than just ground beef in it, but we're gonna some of that out. These also work really well as ice cubes. This particular package, we did have the ribs cut on it. So this is an English style short rib. You can cook them in a crock pot. You can also grill and barbecue them. Flank steak. There's going to be really be 2 of those per entire animal. So if you get a half, you would get 1. If you got a quarter, we got half of 1. Stew meat. So if you want, a lot of people want stew meat. Some folks do not. It's completely up to personal preference. If you do not want stew meat, it will go into the ground beef. So you'll just increase the amount of ground beef that you get. On this particular one, we did have, and there again, it's a quarter, so we do have part of a brisket. So there will be 2 briskets per animal, full briskets. Typically, we have those cut in half, so you have kind of what they call the flat and the point. This is more of the flat, and so this is half of 1 brisket. And for this particular, this is right at 3.5 pound, a 3.5 pound brisket. Really nice for a family. Man, I did one of those July the 4th. Cooked it 14 hours on my smoker. Ooh, man, it was good. And we ate on it for days. So it was chuck eye roast, or a chuck roast. Man, look at that marbling. 3.4 pounds. One of the processing, when you're doing your processing sheets, one of the things that they'll ask you is what size roasts that you want. For reference, a 2 to 3 pound roast fits in traditional size crock pots very, very well. They just sit right down in there. We get, if anyone asks, we tell them to get 2 to 3 pound roasts. There are other options for each family. So there's another chuck eye roast or chuck roast. Ooh. Here's going to be an eye of round roast. Golly, look at that marbling. Once again, 2.23 pounds. We once again had them ask them to do the roast in 2 to 3 pound increments. There's another chuck roast. Skirt steak. There would be 2 skirt steaks per animal. Once again, since this was a quarter, this is half of 1 skirt steak. And then we've got fillets. Mm-hmm. So for this particular...
Are we allowed to look this?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, lots of marbling on there. These fillets were cut. Typically what they ask you in the fillets are not only how many do you want, but how thick that you want them cut, and that's completely up to personal preference. I like to get them at least 1 inch thick, because most people want the fillets to be not well done. You know, you want to cook them, and the thicker they are, the better that they cut. So now we'll get into our ribeyes. These were cut 1 inch thick. My goodness, what marbling. And there's variance in how people want their ribeyes cut. The 1 inch is a good starting point for most folks on their steaks. So if you like them more well done, I would recommend going more like a 3/4 inch cut. They cook a little better and you can get them more done. 1 inch is typically what you probably see a lot of videos online with steaks. If you go up to 1.5 inches, those are really large pieces of beef. Those are for folks that want to do like open fire cooking, that want to get the char on the outside and it still be kind of like medium rare in the middle. All right, so that was the 1 box, and we'll get it out of the way.
Take a picture of what 1 box kind of looks like.
Yeah, and that was just one. That was 1 box. All right, so since we have fillets, we're also going to then have the strips, the New York strips that go along with them. These, once again, were also cut 1 inch thick. This is another type of chuck roast. The ones we talked about earlier were the chuck eye, which are a little bit different from a true chuck roast. Most of the chuck roasts have bones in them. Once again, this is a 2.57 pound roast. Will still fit in a crock pot very, very well. More New York strips. Here is the other part of that brisket that goes along with it. That one was 5.5 pounds. Or New York strips. Got more ribeyes. We did have the shanks in this. A lot of people use these for soup, what they call soup bones, or folks want to do their own beef broth. These work really, really well for that because there's lots of bone in there. You also want you can get the marrow out of that. These are arm roasts. Kind of come from, once again, 3.5 pounds, 3.65 pounds. Both will still fit in a normal size crock pot. More shank bones. And we have both of our, this is a set of sirloin steaks. And this is a tri-tip roast. This one would be, I'd love to thaw and show exactly how to do it. The tri-tip is something that is a relatively newer cut that we do in the beef world. It's also called like the picanha that you'll see on some menus. Sit bones, more sit bones. So there you kind of see that is, and we don't forget we've got our whole box of ground beef still over here. But the way that this one was cut, this is what 1/4 of a beef looks like.